I guess it's the equivalent of ascending Everest. I think it's probably harder. The Bob Graham Round was established in 1932 by a guest house owner called Bob Graham. And Bob Graham and his pals sat down in the pub and wondered how many peaks they could get done in 24 hours. Being the age of 42, he decided to set the new round at 42 peaks, and there the challenge was born. The total ascent over those 42 peaks is 27,000 feet, and the round itself is 66 miles, although it can vary depending on your route and vary drastically if you get lost, which is quite common. The constant up and the constant down are just absolutely hammering. Your legs just get absolutely trashed on the descents. I think only 1 in 3 that attempts the round make it, so the odds are kind of stacked against you a little bit. The recce's were really, really challenging, particularly training through the winter. Had some horrendous failed attempts, particularly on leg 3, but it didn't put me off. I think it was a very character building situation. I just seem to have a bit of stubbornness that kind of carries me through. For some, it's quite simply just a time trial challenge to achieve those 42 peaks in less than 24 hours. For me, I think it was very different. I hadn't appreciated it until I supported a friend of mine last year. I saw a group of mates hanging out in the hills, really pushing themselves, and all the camaraderie that goes with that. And at that point, I was inspired to do it myself, to get all my friends together and have some fun in the hills. You need to have a support crew, and I don't think I could ask for a better one. The biggest supporter is my wife, Emma. She's just an incredible athlete herself. The rest of the team are just a fantastic group of friends. There's a couple of these guys in particular where you wouldn't have to tell them how long you were going running for. You just have to say, I'm going running on the lakes, do you want to come? And they'll be like, yeah, let's go. It could be 10 miles, it could be 50 miles. It wouldn't matter to them. Once we'd pulled up in Keswick and I started to walk into town and towards the hall and knew there was going to be a whole group of my friends just waiting there, I felt a little bit of pressure to start with, but they're my best friends. There wasn't one of them that didn't say, we're here for you, whatever happens. And that was just really humbling. It was great having Ricky there. I was a bit nervous really, a bit starstruck to start with because I knew who he was. I couldn't believe that he'd turned up to help a complete stranger on the Bob Graham.
It's just the way it is with the Bob Graham, you know, there's always people willing to help. It's just because they love the sport and you know, they've been in that position before and they want to give something back, I guess.
Yeah, and there was me, Lee and Ricky set off on leg 1, just cruising out of town, just cantering at a nice pace, just having a good chat. And as we set off up Skiddaw on leg 1, the sun set and then you get the nice sunset colours and you know, we saw the lights on Keswick. I was full of energy and excitement, not feeling fatigued at all for the first time ever going up Skiddaw. It was so light, we didn't put our head torches on pretty much till we hit the summit. But the support from Ricky and Lee was just unbelievable. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to navigate for the first time being in the hills. I could just follow feet and enjoy the view. Managed to find the correct line up Blencathra for the first time. I mean, that's thanks to Ricky's experience, really. As I set off on leg 2, it kind of became apparent that I was feeling a little bit off. Don't know what it was, whether it was just because I'd just come tanking off a massive, great big hill and then tried to get some food down and then set off again. Pretty much felt sick. I mean, what a leg that was. Watching the sunrise steadily over, you know, a couple of hours was just incredible. The colours of the sky were just amazing. And then, yeah, coming up over Lower Man, we could hear the buzz of the drone up on Helvellyn, and it was nice to see a friendly face up on top of the hill there before we skipped on by. Fairfield just feels like a massive insult to the round. I mean, it's just an out and back up a huge, great big hill. I just knew we were going to get a perfect sunrise up there, and that's really when the sun lifted and everything was just bright orange. It was fantastic. So that kind of cheers you up a little bit. Would have been a totally different story if it had been throwing it down with rain. I'd probably call it day right there and then. By the time I got down to Dunmore Raise, I kind of decided that I needed to have a proper sort of 10-minute break and sit down and just kind of collect myself, because I was still feeling a little bit kind of nauseous and not quite myself, which certainly later on was a bit of an issue. I'd always had a bit of a hang-up about leg 3. When I've tried to recce it on 2 or 3 occasions, it's never quite gone right. But the weather not being an issue at all and picking up 3 really experienced runners at that stage filled me with confidence. So to hit the summit, the last summit on leg 3 it felt great, because then it was just a nice descent on sore knees down to the car park. The sickness feeling I'd had just kind of never really left, but I was aware that you have to keep eating. A friend of mine described the Bob Graham as being an eating competition as well as a running competition. You got to eat on the clock to keep yourself fueled up, because you'll just pay for it later. I think maybe the nausea was starting to dissipate, but it was just replaced with fatigue, which is going to happen at that point. I felt like giving up when I arrived at Wasdale. Wasdale is the Bob Graham graveyard. I've heard it called that before, and now I understand why. The lads gave me some chat, because I was having some pretty dark thoughts when I was sat there in a camp chair in the car park. It's amazing how quick you can turn that around, and it might be the simplest thing as someone giving you a pat on the back or putting a cup of tea in your hand, and that's all it takes, and away you go. Leg 4 was much better than I'd kind of expected it to be after I'd felt pretty awful coming into Wasdale. I was a bit kind of confused but feeling better, and as leg 4 progressed I kind of picked up a bit of speed again and started to feel good. There's a lot of climbing on leg 4. It's not very long distance wise, but there's just a lot of steep climbing and not very many runnable sections until you get off Great Gable, where you can pick up some pace again before a final kind of little incline before you descend into Honister. Coming over the crest of Grey Knots and looking down on Honister Pass at the car park, and I could already see Emma and everyone waiting there. It would just put a big smile on my face. I kind of picked up the pace a bit and started descending at speed, and I'd forgotten about the pain in my knees that had kind of gone. But everyone else had decided to rock up and see how I was doing. So probably seeing me at my worst at that stage. Leg 5 was hard, really, really hard. There's no other word to describe it. I think the final test came along when the heavens opened and we just got an absolute downpour for about 30 or 40 minutes. All my muscles, my legs and my arms just started to cramp up with the cold wind and the rain. Emma noticed this straight away and basically just tucked in right in front of me, and I was just drafting behind her, following her feet while the rain came down. And then the rain, as quick as it started, just stopped. And a bit of sun came out again, and yeah, my mood picked up. We had a good gang of us on leg 5. There was just great banter, lots of chat going on. I think that group of people, even though they weren't necessarily chatting to me, they were chatting around me, and it all kind of helped. It's amazing how the last sort of few hundred meters sort of found a new lease of life. It's like when you see the finish line. It was a really good experience. It's one I'll never forget. The ending of 8 or 9 months of preparation for it, and it was the perfect day. It was with perfect people. It was a great feeling to finish. I think the nicest thing finishing wasn't how I felt, it was just that everyone was stood around me, and I sort of gave everyone a big hug, and you could see that they'd had just a really good experience themselves and had just enjoyed running in the hills. That meant a lot more to me than just finishing the round in under the 24 hours.